Joining us now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, we had a great laugh earlier this year when South Park took the mickey out of the Sussexes. Well, another popular cartoon has taken aim at the couple as well. Look, we'll show you that in a second, but before we get to the clip, why do you think satire works so well when it comes to the Sussexes?
I think it's because their life has been so ridiculous. Obviously, being members of the royal family, anything to do with them is obviously big news, but it's the kind of sensationalist way that they left the royal family and have been crying for privacy and have done everything against actually getting their privacy, signing multi-million dollar deals with the likes of Netflix and Spotify. And, you know, it's the embodiment of being famous for nothing. They're kind of like the Kardashians of the royal family, and it's entertaining to watch. And there's so much material for satire when it comes to these two.
Well, here's the clip from Family Guy.
That's fine, I'll go it alone, just like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Sir, your millions from Netflix for no one knows what.
Put it with the rest of them.
Babe, time to do our daily $250,000 sponsored Instagram post for Del Taco.
I shouldn't have left the made-up nonsense.
Esther, they didn't miss, did they?
They definitely didn't. You know, Family Guy is one of my favorite shows. I was a bit sad when Seth MacFarlane stopped writing for them a few years ago, but I think, you know, this is a very easy win to sort of make fun of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And they're right. You know, they're famous for doing God knows what. I mean, their podcast with Spotify was cancelled, understandably so, apparently because of differing expectations. But I think it just drove home the fact that really they have very little to offer. So Prince Harry, as a member of the royal family, when he was, you know, an active working member, was quite an interesting character. You know, he had all these stories. The royal family actually humanized him. He was the fun-loving, you know, ginger guy that everyone loved to be around. And since he's been married, he's been a complete bore, a complete misery, snooze-fest even. And then Meghan Markle is just, you know, a B-list actress known for one role. She's not exactly a biochemist or a doctor or anything really of substance. She's just someone that plays pretend for a living. And somehow that's made the couple think that they have so much to offer. And I think they've really been humbled by the reality, and so has Netflix, because I don't suspect they've got their money's worth for that $100 million deal that they signed with the couple.
Now, Charles has always taken an interest in international affairs. He met with a Palestinian charity and its leaders this week. It's a difficult dispute. Has he struck the right tone?
It seems that he has. You know, after the attacks on October 7th, that saw over 1,400 Israelis butchered by Hamas terrorists, you know, the king didn't waste any time coming out to condemn the attacks and obviously showing solidarity with Israel and its victims, and so did Prince William. And it was actually quite an interesting contrast with the BBC that even refused to call the Hamas terrorists, even though they are a designated terrorist group here in the UK and have been so for a few years. But he's also showing concerns for the humanitarian crisis in Palestine at the moment. He met with the chief executive of UNICEF, representatives from the British Red Cross and other humanitarian groups. And, you know, as the world is watching this crisis unfold, he obviously understands that it's not an easy solution. There's no easy solution to this situation, and there are really going to be no winners on either side. And I think he struck the nuance of the crisis going on, and that's something that we appreciate. I often say that you can't get a better diplomat or representative than members of the royal family, because that is literally their job. They are supposed to echo public sentiment, and, you know, King Charles has always been very good at that. You know, Prince William as well, he is very passionate about humanitarian issues. I mean, one of the causes that he's championing is to try and eradicate homelessness here in Britain. So clearly humanitarian issues are also close to his heart. But, you know, with regards to this crisis, I think King Charles struck the perfect note, actually.
Now, Halloween is a big thing for the Americans, and it's grown in popularity over the years in the rest of the Anglosphere. But the royal family has some historical quirks, which has meant some of the royals have had to celebrate the holiday somewhat more subtly. Here is Meghan on the Ellen DeGeneres show with her story about celebrating Halloween with Prince Harry.
So you went with Harry to a Halloween party and they had no idea it was the two of you?
No. It was a post-apocalypse theme, so we had all of this very bizarre costuming on, and we were able to just sort of have one final fun night out.
So, Esther, what's the royal rule and how do they get around it?
So the royal rule around the royals and how they dress in public in general goes back to Queen Victoria, where she effectively stipulated that all members of the royal family have to conduct themselves with decorum and dignity in public, which means that costumes are completely out of the question. Now, the late Queen Elizabeth actually dressed up as Cinderella at some point before she actually ascended the throne. So it's not like they cannot do it at all, but it was obviously behind closed doors. In public, they have to, be royal and act like they're on the job, because they always are. But the royal family has an unspoken rule that active members of the royal family can't dress up in any costume in public. Now, obviously, we all remember Prince Harry and his Nazi costume at a Halloween party almost 20 years ago now. But it's something that the royals have stuck true to. Obviously, Prince Harry and Meghan and Princess Eugenie and I believe Beatrice went to a Halloween party a few years ago, but that was very low-key. It wasn't sort of in any capacity as a working royal, but it has been a rule that they have stuck to for many years. I can't imagine actually seeing King Charles in costume now. So I think it's only certain members of the royal family that would be interested in doing that. But it's definitely an American import. I've been told not to give children raisins for Halloween, lest they bomb my house.
I love that. And I love this next one, Esther. Another historical quirk of the royal family. Tell us about how the palace staff changed the royal clocks.
So all the clocks in the royal residences have to be changed back. Now that summer is over, the clocks are going back 1 hour. And apparently it's a task that takes 30 hours because there are hundreds of clocks to change. And every single clock in every single royal residence has to be changed, including the clock that Henry VIII gave to Anne Boleyn before their wedding. So that's an interesting fact. But there are so many ancient clocks in all the royal residences that have to be changed. And apparently it's a very arduous task. It takes many, many hours. But it's one of those traditions that come with being in the royal family, I suppose.
While we're on a roll about royal tradition, it turns out that William and Kate may break tradition with George's education. What's proposed?
Yeah, so it seems like only a few decades ago that we were even questioning whether children of the royal family should go to public school. Obviously, King Charles and his siblings broke that rule, but Prince George, who's now at Lambrook School, he's going to be turning 13 in a few years. So obviously his education at that school will end, and his parents are looking at other options. Now, the expected sort of school that he's will likely go to is Eton, because that's been the tradition with his father and his uncle. But actually, there are rumours that he could go to Marlborough College, which is where his mother, Princess Catherine, attended. And he would be the first royal to actually finish his education in a co-ed school instead of going to a single-sex school like the rest of his members of his family. So it's quite an interesting transition. Obviously, back in the day, royals didn't even attend public school. They were all homeschooled. So it's been quite a transition over just, a few short decades, really.
Now, Esther, it will surprise precisely no one that couples have differing views on money. Why are the Sussexes in the news about this precise issue?
So apparently the Sussexes have different approaches to what to do with their money. So Prince Harry, after unleashing the bombshell sort of autobiography earlier this year, Spare, now he wants to focus more on family and charity work, and he wants to funnel a lot of the couple's money towards that. I think we both know that they have made a lot of money given their shenanigans over the last 2 years. But apparently Meghan wants to actually focus on building up her brand. So there have been rumours that she could actually post or do sponsored posts on Instagram, which is something that influencers do. I wouldn't know because I'm not one of them. But apparently she could make up to $1 million a post by just sponsoring any sort of brand that's willing to have her as a spokesperson. So it's going to be quite an interesting dynamic to navigate. Obviously, Prince Harry's has stated that his focus is more on charity work and public service and focusing on his family. But obviously their brands are diverging as Meghan wants to kind of rebuild her own brand as well and sort of image in the public life. So it'll be quite an interesting approach. I suspect they spend a good amount of their money on security. So whatever spare change that they have, they should probably use wisely, because I don't think the royal family are very interested in bringing them back into the fold.
Hear, hear. Now, a fun one to finish with. A commentator this week claimed that Will and Kate's country house is haunted. Now, noting, of course, that this is a show with a lot of royal commentary, royal commentary has no bounds, does it, Esther?
It does not. So apparently this goes back to someone who was born at Anmer Hall in Norfolk, Henry Walpole. He was born in 1558 and he was, a renowned Catholic. He was responsible for building a local Catholic school in Norfolk, and he was killed. He was assassinated some 40 years after his birth for not affirming that Queen Elizabeth I was indeed the head of the church. In 1970, he was canonized by the Catholic Church, and apparently his ghost now resides in the Prince and Princess of Wales's residence in Norfolk. So I suspect this story doesn't have much to it, because I don't think his ghost would hang around there. I don't think he'd be very welcome. It looks like a full house. The Prince and Princess of Wales have 3 children, so it's a party of 5. If I was a ghost, I think I'd find somewhere a bit more peaceful. But like you said, royal commentary knows no bounds, and the house could indeed be haunted. Who knows?
It could be, and even if it's not true, it's an absolutely fabulous yarn. Esther Krakue, as always, thank you so much for joining us.